Hello, hello. Um, we're gonna make a bunch of stuff real quick. So we're gonna prep. Um, we're gonna prep some waffles, and we're gonna soak some seeds or grains or whatever you have on hand to mix into our bread. And hey, Meadow, welcome. You made it. Um, and then we're also gonna feed our starter to make bread in the morning. So we're gonna start the waffles tonight. So we'll do most of the stages, and then we'll do the rest in the morning. I'll explain that tonight just in case you want to make waffles at whatever time you want. So without further ado, let's get going. So the first thing we're going to do is soak our seeds or our grains. Pretty much anything works. Any kind of seeds. Meadow, we were talking earlier, but flax, sunflower, sesame, whatever you got that you think would taste good. Poppy, different grains. I'm actually going to be doing a cracked grain, so I've got a bunch of different grains, rye and wheat berries and all that. So I'm going to soak those. So we're going to do equal parts weight of seeds or grains and boiling water, and then put it in a container, stir it up, done. And that's it. It'll sit overnight so that they soak. So we do this separate from our bread mix because the seeds will they'll suck in a lot of moisture and they'll dry out your bread, messing up your whole ratio. So yeah, so you want to soak them beforehand. And if you soak them too wet, then you can always pour off if there's extra liquid. But a 1-to-1 ratio is usually roughly good. So let's start that. I got my water. Seeds, put them on scale. Boiling water. It could be hot water, doesn't matter. There we go. Give it a stir. And that's it. Cover it up. Done. So let's do our waffle mix next so that we can get this whole thing of starter that's all fed and ready. So you can see it's nice and airy, ready to use. And then we'll use the leftover to make our starter culture for the bread tomorrow. So we'll make another, we'll just use this exact same container. So big bowl, I'll turn this camera down and just talk. So it doesn't really matter what order. We'll start with this since we got it. So let's see. I'm not very well prepared. I got a recipe on there. I'll have to pull it up. I think I remember it offhand. But we got 300 grams of starter. I know that. Okay, our starter. Got some buttermilk, 1,000 grams. So continue. Okay. And then we got 300 grams of butter. Melted butter, melt it. Make sure it's not too hot so you don't kill your yeast. Okay. And then I'm using some cornmeal. You don't have to. I like a little bit of texture with the waffles, but you want to soak it in your mix overnight so it softens a little bit. You could use anything. I like oats or some sort of grains. Anything's good in the waffles. I just like a little bit of oomph. With polenta does really well. So, uh, there's that. Got about 300 grains of that. Grams, not individual. 1, 2, 3. Use as much as you want. This is honest. I don't really write out this recipe or weigh it that often. I just kind of throw it in. But this is a pretty good approximation of what I do, and I like it. I don't know. And now flour. I said about 900 grams. I'm going to do about 300-400 of it whole grain, just for your preference. You could do all of it. You could do none of it. Doesn't matter. And then we'll see if the consistency is right. I'm going to start at 800 and go from there. So I can already tell I screwed up. It should be a higher hydration with the buttermilk. So we're going to add some more and weigh it. AW, yeah, it's polenta. There's 250 more. Okay. Don't want to overmix, but that about feels right. It's a little bit thicker because we still have to add eggs, but we'll do that in the morning. So we'll let this sit. We'll cover it with a towel or something. It's going to be thicker than you would want it, but A, it's going to break down, and B, we're going to add 6 eggs to it. So that's where it's really going to thin out. So this feels about right. So we ended up doing 1,250 grams of buttermilk. I'll modify the recipe on the Google Doc since it's a little off. And let's feed our starter. I just realized the cat's in the background. We gave her a catnip mouse, and she's going insane. Weird. All right. So we're going to make bread in about 12 hours, which means you need 150 grams total. You don't want to use a lot of starter, and you probably want to use colder water. So I'm using cold water. You can see I've got probably going to get rid of about half of that and just use a tiny amount of sourdough culture since we have 12 hours to go until we mix the bread. I didn't zero out the scale, but I added AW. I just continued. So the starter was 300, and then I just continued up to 1,300. So you almost got me, but I did it right. So for our bread, so now I've just got like the dredges of that. So 150 grams for the bread, roughly. Again, this is just this recipe, but you can mess around with it. I'm going to do 600, so I'm going to do 300 of water, 300 of flour to get 600 for 4 loaves of bread. But if you're doing it just for 1 loaf, then 75 grams of water, 75 grams of flour. So let's mix it up, and then we'll let it sit overnight, and hopefully it'll be ready and to use when we want it. So this is where you have to adjust. So it's going to be 12 hours is a long time for your starter to be ready. So, like we were talking about, colder water, um, and less starter. So, if you start with less bacteria, it'll take longer for it to propagate and take over. So, that's how you control it. And you can keep it somewhere colder as well. So, start with colder materials, but then also don't keep it in a warm kitchen. Move it to a colder room or something like that, away from the heater. And vice versa. If you want to be quicker, if you want to make bread in 6 hours, then use more starter out of that 150 and use warmer water in a warmer location. So, let's mix it up. So 75 for you, 300 for me. Any sort of flour. Going to continue. This is 600. All right. All right. Put a little lid, and we're done. Let's see, Meadow. How much starter for one loaf? About 150 is what we've been doing. 75 water, 75 flour, and just a little bit of starter. So if you have 12 hours to go until we do the main mix, not more than 5-10 grams of starter. You want to be real slow, and of course the temperature of water is also going to make a difference. So colder water. Yep, yeah. So 150. Again, you can mess with that. You could do bread with more starter. You could do it with less. Once you get comfortable, start messing around and experimenting. But stick with what I'm doing for now until you get the hang of it, and then start branching out, experimenting with what works for you. All right, Joe. So waffles in the morning, you can just add in your eggs and that honey that I had in there, or you can get real fancy and heat it up and then whip it and create a sort of meringue. Gets a little more foam. So do that at any point. I'm going to do it at the time I said, but make your waffles when you want, and we'll do the bread mix at the same time tomorrow morning. So cool. Have a good night. See you guys soon.